Hi, welcome back. We are going to be going through the simple CTF on TryHackMe, which is a beginner level CTF. This has been a good room to go through. There was a few not so simple areas which we'll get into, and after a little bit of research we got through. If you like this video, please do leave a like and subscribe and a comment with your thoughts, feelings, and feedback. Alright, we only have one task, as this is not a walkthrough, just a actual CTF, which is nice. So we want to start off by getting our machine, so make sure you're logged into your TryHackMe account, boot that machine up, and we'll start looking at these questions. So as that's booting up, let's go ahead and go into our OpenVPN. Now, if you have issues with this, I will actually just show you some a command. You can go ahead and run this. I fixed my issue up. The issue that I was having was I wasn't seeing a initialization sequence completed at the end. It was sort of stuck in a loop. So I reached out to the Discord community and they sent that through, and that worked great. It looks like it's sort of like a find and replace from my understanding, but you need to run this inside the location of your OVPN file. So if you ever have that issue, that's a nice little fix there. Once you're on, make sure that you can connect, and you are connected by pinging 10, and also make sure that you can see the VM that started up. Now, I have done this room, so we should see our packets there, and it just does take a little while sometimes, so first few packets dropped, but all good, so we are up and running. So to see how many ports, we're always going to start off with our enumeration, which is going to be finding out as much as we want about this machine. So I'm going to make sure I do the double verbosity, making sure that we see our outputs. I'm going to run capital A for all, so OS detection, and trying to run scripts, so it'll do a bit of automated probing, looking around for us. Great, so I'm going to let that run. This shouldn't take too long now that we've confirmed that everything was open, unlike me, who I didn't confirm things and I just started. Okay, so we've got a few ports already here. So the first question we've got, how many services are running under port 1000? Well, so far I can see 2 underneath 1000 and 1 over. So let's go check it 2. Great. Now next, what is running on the higher port? So we can't see what's running on our higher port until this completes. So at this point, we've seen the discovered ports, and now it's running through the extra. So it's trying to find scripts that are going to match these ports. It's going to do its best job to see what's up with that. So here we go, we're nearly finished. Awesome. So this is a good time to go ahead and grab all of that. I did output it to a file, but you can copy paste this into your notes. I do this, I've got all my notes as I go along, but for this purpose of this video, I will not be taking notes because it just adds a little bit too much time. Okay, so we can go here and see our port S2222 is on SSH. So this is a good reminder because we will most likely, I know we will, we'll be connecting via this later on when we get some credentials. So we've got to make sure we remember that the default port has changed. So they've changed on their machine. So this is where it gets a little bit difficult from this point on. What's the CVE you're using against the application? So out of this info, we need to start poking around and see what we can, what we can find. So the information that we've got here so far is our 3 ports. So like I said, we can't do anything with SSH, so let's focus on 21 and 80. So we'll go in the list in order. So with our FTP, because we ran that capital A in the Nmap scan, it tried to run FTP add-on script, which was successful. So we can log in to our FTP with it and just with autonomous login. So this is cool. So let's run FTP against our IP. I don't know, I think it's capital anonymous. And we're in, which is very cool. Now, we should be able to list out the contents, and looking at other write-ups, we actually should have been able to see stuff. I'm not sure why this enters into some passive burn. I'm not sure if that's an error on the VM, or I'm doing something, or it is by design. But I can't get anything from looking around here. So I believe there is a note here that we're supposed to read, but from my angle, I can't see anything, so it's a dead end for me. Since I've gone through this, I know that it's not going to be the end of the world. We will be able to get through the box, but it was a little confusing. It was very confusing in the beginning, but that's okay. We can sort of ignore FTP for now. So let's look at what else we've got. So it's always good. I try and take notes of, or at least because I copy this whole thing, I'll bold this anywhere that I see like VS, just version numbers of software. I'm like, okay, there could be some known vulnerability. Because this is asking us about a CVE, which, if you're unfamiliar, is common vulnerabilities and exposures, CVE. So it's sort of like the public database of all known vulnerabilities. So any version number might correspond or link up to a known vulnerability on that database. Okay, so if we go over to our browser, we'll just plug in the IP address, and we've just got the default Apache homepage. So there's nothing there. So this is just the index.html. So unless we manually start just guessing other pages like admin, or this could take a while, right? So let's try and automate this guessing, and we'll use another tool for this. So this is a good time to make sure you copy this over. I've got a copy of this off screen, so I'm not going to do it. So when we've got a few tools. We've got dirbuster. I prefer directory search, dir search. I find that this one is just a little bit easier to use, and it's pretty easy. We just got to specify the URL that we want to give to it. In this case, it's just going to be http :// and then the IP address, and that's it. Okay, so the scan's nearly complete, and we've got a few interesting things. So we've already tried the index.html, which is just the homepage. Something I actually missed on our scan, so I should have spent a bit more time on our original Nmap scan, so there was more information there. But we can get to robots.txt. So this doesn't really give us too much information. This also showed up on our Nmap scan, which I skipped over. But yeah, the more important thing is this simple. So that's kind of interesting. Let's focus our efforts here, because we do have a 301, which is a different message, which I don't know off the top of my head. Should look it up. If somebody can, that'd be great. So we have CMS made simple, so content management system, so like WordPress or Joomla content management systems. The technology itself isn't too important. It is a hint, but we don't really need to know the ins and outs of it. Some things that I'm seeing that I didn't see the first time around is we actually do see a user. So this is a good hint. Maybe they've used this as the username for logins too. So we can try that. And if we have a look around, we also do get a version number, which is something that we always want to look for. Usually I like to do like an inspect and just see if they've left any hints, but because this is testing a known vulnerability, I think we've got everything we need to go and on to the next step. So let's go back to our terminal. Again, make sure we're copy pasting or outputting our file, our information somewhere. So looking up our database using search exploit. So this is going to look for our CVEs. So I did a lot of trial and error on this. But what I found worked is just starting the searches a bit more broad. So I was using the version number, but I sort of learned here, focus on the actual technology name first, and then you can start to whittle down. Okay, so we actually can look at all of these in more detail by using command like -W, and this will actually pull up the link to the actual website. So after going through almost all of these, I can tell you that this one is what we're after. So this only came from trial and error. Sometimes that's just what it's like. So we can go ahead and go to this and we get our CVE, which make sure that you actually copy the full, including the actual letters CVE. Great. Awesome. So we can go ahead and download this. We can look at the code so we know that this is the right one. And this is written in Python, which I'm learning. So this was actually a good exercise for me to go over this. So what we actually just want to do is just run this without W, and we just want to locate this file. So with search exploit, and if you're using Kali Linux, this has got a local copy of all of these files already, which is quite nice. So to go and find exactly where this is, we can use locate, and we can just run that, and it will go ahead and find the absolute path, file path to that. So what we can do is if you go ahead and make like a new directory, for example, just a TryHackMe directory, you can be as organized as you want. But if we just go ahead and copy that file to our local directory, just, you know, if we're going to make some changes to this exploit, but we don't want to, you know, change the original. So we'll just go and make a copy of that. Cool. So if we look at this, we can get some information. So we've got comments about, you know, who made it and what it's made for. We've got the modules that it's using. So it's using some request modules and some other things just to make the output pretty. This is cool. So this is how we've actually got our sysargv working, being the actual terminal inputs from the user. So when we put in -u after we run this, this is how it's actually going to use it. So yeah, I'm learning. It's a good exercise to do a little bit of examination on the exploit. The reason that I'm doing this with you is as we run this, we'll see this is a bit of a problem. These print functions are in Python 2. This whole thing is in Python 2. So if we run Python 4.6, we don't want this. This is from the last time I did. If we run this, we're getting this missing parentheses in call for print. So this took a little while for me to figure out, but yeah, this is written in Python 2. And our systems are most likely running Python 3. So we can force Python 2 and run it like this, but we run into another issue where these modules that I just showed, they haven't actually been imported. So these are other Python files that need to be installed on your system so that this Python file can run. Are you with me? Yeah, so, and I after lots of trial and error, The best way to solve this is actually to get an app called 2to3, which I already have installed. So go ahead and run sudo apt install 2to3, and as you may have guessed, this is literally Python 2to3. So it's going to convert this file from Python 2to3. So once that's installed, we just want to run 2to3. Make sure we use uppercase W and then put it to the file that we want. This is actually going to show us everything in the old file by this minus. So this is what it was. And with the plus, this is what we've changed it to. So we can see here, it's added those end parentheses to be Python 3 compliant. So we list out, it actually goes ahead and makes a backup of our file, and along with the new file, which it's made those changes to. So again, we can just cat that out and we can see those parentheses have been added, which is great. So that saves us a lot of hassle from manually going through, which I did consider at one point. So now that we've got our Python 2 exploit converted into Python 3, we can go ahead and run our Python 3 interpreter as per normal. And like we saw in our code, we need to specify URL with a -u, and we're going to be passing through, and you can see my earlier example, we're going to pass through going to the simple directory. So we can go ahead and run that. Now, if yours doesn't work, you should start to see it trying, and this is from the pretty output, the code that the exploit developer actually made it so we can see what's going on, which is quite nice. If you don't see anything, if you don't see these numbers and letters changing, then your exploit isn't working. Go back and follow the steps. Just as a little bit of a warning, I did try this a few times and I got different results. So what this is going to do is it's going to find the salts, the username, the email, and then the password, which we'll see shortly. Great. So now we have our salt and our hash. We can go ahead and continue. So let's just go back to our question. So we've got to what kind of vulnerability is application vulnerable? So if we remember from our CVE, we have our SQL injection. So I was looking for, this tripped me up because it was like SQLi, and turns out, yeah, that's what we're after. So it's just the acronym. Great. So now that we have our salt, make sure we go and save this off. We have our salt and our password, and if we understand the basics of how passwords are stored, this is the password as a hash or a hash value, and this is added to that password for complexity. So this exploit has taken advantage of the known vulnerability to extract this. So what we need to do is take these values and put it through some sort of tool where we can crack. So a great tool for this is the hashcat. So we can go ahead and run hashcat, and we can just put these in there. Use the right settings. So there's so many settings in hashcat. I've just run the help here, and I'm going to scroll up just to see the flags that we need. So the main two flags from doing a little bit of research is our -m and our -a. So we need to tell hashcat what hash type this is. Now, I know that this is MD5 from trial and error, and I had a little bit of a funny error. When I first did this, I got a different salt. I got like half the password, and this said M5. Now, it was, I assume, just an error in the exploit, but that M5 was enough for me to go, oh, well, this must be MD5, which is like a known, not very secure hashing algorithm. So I went and I found it with that, but turns out after running this again, M5 was not the username, and it was not a clue. It was just a happy accident. So yeah, that's how I knew it, but it's just sort of strange thing. Anyway, so we'll be using -v and -a for attack mode, so telling it how to attack. So there's examples here. So if we scroll down to, there's honestly, this kind of overwhelming how many options. So 0 is MD5, but since we have a hash and assault, we need to do something a little bit different. And if we go through our examples, we can see here 10 MD5 password and then the salt, or 20 the salt and then the password. So we can do it. I did it with 20 because I was following a guide, but let's try and use 10 this time. So we'll use password and salt because this is how I learned passwords were stored. It was password first and then salt at the end. But I guess that, salts can be at different areas. We can have multiple salts. So let's type out hashcat and we'll do -o and we'll go -a. So this is the important one. So we're just going to leave it in the 0 attack mode, which is just the straightforward one. -m to specify the mode that we want. So like I said, we could do 20, but this time I'm going to try 10. And this is where we're going to put in the hash here, separated by colon, and then the salt here. So that's how we need this to go. So if you haven't saved your hash and salt from earlier off screen, then you need to run it again or go get it again. So that's the salts, but remember we're doing hash and salt. So let's go get the hash. So paste that in here, separated by a semicolon, colon rather, and then the hash at the end. Cool. So you can go ahead and add this to a file. So if you were doing multiple hashes and salts you were trying to crack, you could just pass through the file. We're just trying to do one, so that's all we need. Then we need to specify the word list. So we actually don't need to do any switches. We can just go ahead and put in the word list here. So you can actually do this. If we look at the hint, we can go ahead and use the sec lists, which is a separate directory that for me wasn't installed on Kali. So if you want to go ahead and use there you go, that's where I installed it. If you want to go and use what they recommend, you can go ahead and run sudo apt install sec lists to grab that, and then you'll have it. So that works fine, and also rocku works fine. So if we just list out in our user shared lists, you should see a rocku text. If you're new to Linux and you've had a fresh install of Kali, make sure you go and do a gzip. There we go. So this is from when I did it. So you're going to decompress or unzip the rocku text file, which comes zipped. I'm not really sure why it comes zipped. Maybe it's just for size reasons. But anyway, you'll need to run this, unzip it, and then you get your text file. Okay. So I'm just going to use the rocku text list. So we'll just go user share word lists, and then it's just right there, rocku. Cool. So the last thing is we're just going to add --show so we can see the results at the end. And yours will take a little bit longer. Mine's already, I've done it before. So we can see here at the end, it's added the password, which is quite cool. So we can go ahead and just copy that over, or rather just type it out. So we've got our password. So where can you log in to the details obtained? So we have another 3 letters. So this confused me for a bit because we know that there is actually an admin here. We knew that from somewhere. If we run directory search again, we could find it that way. I think I found it from just clicking around. So you can see here when I thought M5 was the, but it's definitely not M5. So we can log in here. So this is what tripped me up because the question's asking for 3 letters. I was like, CMS? Like, is this where we're going? But if we actually go back to our port scan, we can log in another way. Do you remember what it is? Pause the video and leave a comment below. Otherwise, you can just watch me answer it for you. SSH. So we can access SSH. So now we have our user. We can go ahead and just log in, right? right? That doesn't seem to be working. Why is that? Go back over your scan. What was in your scan that was a little bit different? Do you remember? The port number was different. They added a custom port number. Okay, so you need to specify, and this it tripped me up. So we can go ahead, put in his passwords, and we're in. Oh yeah, so we've logged in as the user Mitch. So we can see what's in here. We can see that there is a user file. So this is not a nice shell. We don't have autocorrect with tabbing, but we can look at this flag. So there's a list of things that we should do in here, which I don't know how to do, which is common checks. One that I do know how to do, and that it's sort of hinting towards here. If we just want to list out the home directory, every user is gonna have a home directory, or they should. And we can see that there indeed is another user, and it's saying here, what's their name? So we have another user. So what can you leverage to spawn a privileged shell? Okay, so this is where it got, again, not so simple. This was a bit tricky. After a little bit of cheating, I did find that the way to do this is run sudo -l, which is going to go and tell us anything that we can run with sudo privileges. So if we go and run sudo vim, which is a text editor, which I do not use because I do not understand it, but maybe one day I will. And we run :, exclamation mark, bash. This is going to spawn a bash shell. But since we can run it as root privileges, that will automatically give us these root privileges. Now, I went down a wrong turn at this point. I didn't actually do this. I was like looking into logging back in as the other user through SSH, and I found her password because I thought it was really smart. I opened the password file, and I got the hash from the shadow file rather, and I was gonna do, anyway, didn't work. This is how you do it. So be okay to make mistakes as we go through our learning. Anyway, so now we can just go and ls our root directory, and we should see our root, and we can just go ahead and get that, and that is our right. So sorry, vim was how we did that, and then we've just found our last flag, which is how we go through it that way, and we get to the end. So I hope you enjoyed. That was fun. It was a lot easier doing it retrospectively. Cannot tell you how frustrating this was, but it's learning. So I'm actually getting better at it being less frustrating and more appreciating the journey that is learning cybersecurity. It's okay when things do get a bit frustrated. But yeah, so like that whole Python 2 to Python 3 thing, like that tripped me up heaps. It was annoying. What used to frustrate me with this sort of thing is like, oh, everything should be perfect. Like these, the makers and the writers of these CTFs, like they should have everything perfect because, in education, everything needs to be like, but technology just, it doesn't work like that. Like, I think this CTF was made in 2019. I'm pretty sure Python 3 was around for a while, but this exploit that he chose to use, that CVE, the maker of that, exploit could have made that Python file ages ago, and Python 3 wasn't even a thing. So like, should the creator of the room have picked another CVE to use, one that's a bit newer, where it's like, but this is a common thing that people don't update their applications, and you might find an exploit that's running on Python 2. So like knowing how to, as we learn after a bit of trial and error, to change our Python files from 2 to 3, like, isn't that in itself like a good lesson, something to learn? It's not even outlined in the room anywhere, but yet now we've got another skill under the belt that we can use. So like that, this is sort of how I'm looking at doing more when we are learning. It's just better sort of accepting that technology is never going to be that straightforward, and every time we get frustrated in the learning journey, just to, I don't know, sort of take it for what it is, and we will eventually use this somewhere and it will be helpful. I think I don't think 100% of the trial and error is always going to be useful, but I think this is especially going to be useful some future, so it's still worth doing because you might get some usefulness out of it, even though you still might not. Anyway, guys, that is the SimpleCTF from TryHackMe. I hope you enjoyed this. A full written write-up will be in the link below if you prefer to go through that with screenshots and explanations. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe. Would appreciate your feedback. It honestly does help. If anything, it's very much a mental help. Seeing comments and stuff is good motivation, so I genuinely do appreciate that sort of thing. If you have any feedback or how I could improve, I'm always open for improvement, so please do that. Otherwise, yeah, I'm going to stop rambling and see you in the next one. Hey, I know that the video is over, but if you stuck around this long, you're a legend, for one, and for two, just apologies. There's actually a lot of sniffles and like coughs, and I say so much. I just want to apologize for all that. If you are in this video, you deserve that much at this stage. Okay, thank you. Sorry.